I had the good fortune of meeting some of the very leading personalities of Latin America. I first met Fidel Castro in 1981 when I went to Cuba. As a guest of the Cuban government from Mexico. I was in Mexico, but they had organized a second conference, international conference of economists of the third world. So they had invited economists from all over the world, and they had invited me from Mexico. So, and at that time it was Fidel Castro who had received us, it was a huge thing. But I was also taken around by another organization called ICA, Cuban Institute of Friendship with People, Instituto Cubano de Amistad con los Pueblos. So I was taken around and I was given a very warm welcome in different institutions as a special guest. So that was the first introduction to a great personality, but like Fidel Castro. But that was only a very formal kind of an introduction. I had a great opportunity to meet him and be very near him during the non-aligned meet. During the there is a very interesting incident that I may share with you. When during the non-aligned meet, during a lunch session at the president's house, all the important presidents were invited for lunch by Mrs. Gandhi, and so we were there at the foyer, and lunch arrangement was made in a separate place, and Mrs. Gandhi was walking up the place, looking after all the arrangements, and her secretary Usha Bhagat was also there, and I was also present, as in case they needed the help, of an interpreter. So me and some more colleagues were, recruited by the Ministry of External Affairs to help in this whole non-aligned from the Latin American world. So I was deputed there, and suddenly Mrs. Gandhi calls up Usha Bhagat and calls me also by name, and says, you have to do me a great favor. What? And she sighted from a distance, from the windows of this ground floor, that President Daniel Ortega was approaching that foyer, that place of the lunch, and she suddenly remembered that on that particular day he had not been invited. So she was very, she appeared a little puzzled what to do, and suddenly she told me, Ganguly, do me a favor, hold the Mr. Daniel Ortega, President Daniel Ortega, to the door. Don't hold him some kind of a conversation. Don't allow him to come to the lunch hall. Don't ask me why. And then she disappeared. And so me, Usha Bhagat, and one or two more secretaries, joint secretaries, we were there. As soon as he appeared, so I had to hold him in some kind of a conversation. And what appeared to me most logical and acceptable was to show him a little bit of the great architecture of Rashtrapati Bhavan and the designs that were drawn, the paintings that were there. So I may not have known all that, but I had to invent a few things, and even describe the costumes of the guards who were standing, tall guards, Rashtrapati. So all this explanation one by one. So I took him a little further and started explaining these designs and these pillars, and that I could hold him for around 15 minutes, and then suddenly Usha Bhagat tells me, now you can come. So I was so relieved. And when we took him to the lunch hall, we found that a special table had been arranged by Mrs. Gandhi with the name of Daniel Ortega written there on the table, and he was received by Mrs. Gandhi there itself. Please come, sit down, and she started having a lot of talk. In fact, I also perceived that Daniel Ortega was a little embarrassed. He thought, why so much of importance to me when Fidel Castro is standing next, the table talking to other people, and he is the most important guest there. So I thought that she got a little bit of this feeling. But anyway, imagine Mrs. Gandhi within that 10-15 minutes had made that arrangement for Daniel Ortega as a separate table. Look at the alacrity of this lady, So this conversation went on, and I was there, present there. But Daniel Ortega, then she shifted to Fidel Castro table. So they had their conversation. And after the whole thing, everybody was, bid goodbye. So Fidel Castro and some of his colleagues and his own interpreter, I think his name was Jose. So they were in the foyer, before going out. They were talking of, the architecture of this great building, etc., the beautiful gardens and all that. They were talking, and I was also present there. So after about 10-15 minutes of conversation, so it was his turn to go. So he was informed that the car was waiting. So he was about to leave. He shook hands with everyone, but I do not know with what kind of a feeling. He came near me and just hugged me. And I was, of course, flabbergasted. I said, this is, I could not place my feet on earth, with this kind of a great reception from this great leader at that time, 83. Imagine Fidel Castro, what kind of a position he had. And we always read about him and, held him in such great. One day earlier, he had, in a special foyer, in the VVIP lounge, the ambassador of Cuba and other people and him, we had met, and he had signed a special book that he had written on the economic development in Latin America. He signed a special book for me, saying, with love to Shama Prasad. That is what he wrote. That book I still have with me as a great treasure. So so that is why the next day when he knew me, and so he hugged me, and then after a minute these people left. As they left, and we were standing there, one of the secretaries, he said, Professor Ganguly, don't move. I thought there was a security problem or something. I said, but why? What happened? He said, we are going to take you to the National Museum. For a second I was flabbergasted. No one else has been hugged so closely by Fidel Castro, particularly in this Rashtrapati Bhavan. It is you alone, so therefore you have to be placed in National Museum at least for a week, so that we can show people that we have here a professor who has been hugged.